I've tried making this video a couple of times this morning, and boy, can I just rant and rant for far too long. No one's going to want to watch the 20-minute version of this video that I put together this morning, so let's just make this short and sweet. What's happening right now in Ottawa and in Windsor is shameful, and I don't mean the protesters. This is one of the first times in a very, very long time I'm genuinely proud of some fellow Canadians. Canada is beautiful, and many of its people are also just beautiful, wonderful people. But politically, this country has gone down a rabbit hole, particularly over the last couple of years, that is just shameful. As much as I want to make a statement very quickly about what's happening in Windsor and Ottawa, what this video really is going to deal with is what a constitution is and why it's so important that we Canadians rework the Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms to recognize what a constitution really should be. Before I mention that, if you are in Ontario, if you are able to get to Windsor or Ottawa, and you can keep a level head, which in many ways I don't think I could, watching the live streams coming from there, I respect so much the patience that the citizens there are exhibiting and their right to protest peacefully. But watching what the police are doing right now, it would be very, very difficult for me to not push back. I'll just get that out there. But this is coming from someone who, for years now, if I was ever given the choice of either supporting police officers or bashing them in some way, I'm going to support them every day of the week. They go out of their way, they put their lives on the line, they risk everything to keep us safe. But I'm just doing my job is no excuse. There are so many times in history where that excuse is used and it does not validate what happens. So police officers out there really need to think hard about what they're being involved in. Again, I support you, but you don't do your job just because you're doing your job. You do your job because it's the right thing to do, because you are protecting people. If you are in Ontario and you can get there, charge your phone, charge your camera, grab it, get out there, peacefully assemble, and make our voices heard. That's just so important right now. But what do I mean by Canadians need to rework what our Constitution is? Correct me if I'm wrong, and hopefully someone in the comments will if I misstate this in some way. But as a capitalist, I think the government should really be responsible for only three things. That's military, to protect ourselves from foreign invasion, not to meddle in other countries' affairs, but to protect our own sovereign land from a foreign entity invading. The police, to protect us from other criminals inbound in our country. And the courts, to be a final arbiter between any disagreements that two citizens have. The government should not be involved in anything beyond that. Now, I recognize Canada is not technically a capitalist country, nor has it ever been. That's certainly why I identify as an American more than I identify as a Canadian, and I don't say that to insult or judge. It's just a fact. The thing that the American Constitution has that differs from any other example that I've ever seen is that it is not a list of what citizens are allowed to do. Yes, the Bill of Rights exists. Arguably, it's redundant and actually hurts the cause more than anything. But what the Constitution is, not the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, is it is a document that directly and explicitly delimits the power of the government. It tells the government what it can do, and most importantly, it tells the government what it cannot do. That is what a constitution is. We have certain inalienable rights. Those are granted to us naturally by the fact that we are free individuals. We can go into a deeper discussion philosophically and politically about that in another video, but suffice it to say that the government's job is not to tell us what we are allowed to do. The government's job is to protect us and our individual rights from being violated by anybody else. And that's it. It's not its job to provide a list of actions that citizens are allowed to do. It's not to force citizens to behave in a certain way. There is a fundamental difference between a capitalist society and a statist society. The idea that the government exists to protect our rights is a capitalist notion. The idea that the government exists to control the population is a statist one. There can be arguments and discussions to be had if there's a difference truly between fascism and communism and socialism, but ultimately those are all forms of collective statism. Simple. You're just replacing with semantics whether the state is above the rights of the individual, if society is above the rights of the individual. That's really the only fundamental difference. There's a difference in the view of what property rights are for a fascist country versus a communist country versus a socialist country, but ultimately they're all statist governments that think their job is to control the population, not to protect the population's individual rights. I also recognize that individual rights to an objectivist and a capitalist is a little redundant, because there should not be anything such as collective rights. Simple. No group of people band together and somehow obtain more rights than any of the single individuals that comprise that unit. I'm obviously going off on a little tangent again right now, but we really, really need to take a step back in Canada and recognize that if we get rid of these mandates and we get rid of these vaccination passports, awesome. But there's a precedent already and a misunderstanding from the government about what its role is. And it's going to take a tiny bit of political will by the next person or by Justin Trudeau again to simply put these kinds of restrictions back in place. The government views its mandate and its job as to do those things. And that's so fundamentally wrong. What Canada needs is a document that tells the government what it can do and, most importantly, what it cannot do. The rest comes naturally from the agreement, the social contract theory that we have with the government to say, you're not here to tell me how I should live my life. You're simply here to stop someone else from using force against me and controlling the way that I live my life. You're also here to stop me from exhibiting that kind of force, influence, and coercion on somebody else. If you are busy doing your job there, the rest of it is all about our voluntary choices, our decision as to whether or not we're going to engage or not engage with a particular individual or a group. But the government's job is not to tell us what we should do with our bodies. It's not to tell us how we should communicate with each other. Anyway, I will go off on a rant if I continue down this road. So let me sum this up very, very quickly. Canadians, we really, really need to rework the idea of what our Constitution is. So that's my little rant about what a Constitution is, why it's so important that we take a different approach if we are ever going to solve this problem long term in Canada. On a lighter note, there's been ups and downs every day with what's happening here in Canada. It's hard to stay optimistic every single day, but there is one guy that's really, really helping me quite a lot with that. And I just want to kind of introduce everyone to it. If you haven't seen my previous videos, motorcycle videos and things where there was clips of Prometheus, he's my dog who I might be in trouble because I'll put a clip at the very end of this video that shows he's smarter than I was expecting. Not really. Nah, he's a smart puppy, but he's figuring things out that I wasn't expecting him to. Prometheus, come here. Hello, handsome. Come on. You want to say hello? Oh, hi. Oh, don't eat my face. Don't eat my face and my ears, please. You big handsome fella. Hello. Hello. Yes. Yes. You are such a handsome boy. So this guy figured out how to open his crate from the outside. So quite often what happens is he likes to bring his toy in the middle of a meeting of mine. Over here. Sit down. Yes. He likes to bring his toy in the middle of a meeting that I'm having or something like that, covered in slobber, drop it on my lap, and expect me to play with him right then and there. And he gets a little pushy about it. So what I've been doing, instead of having to put him in his crate, is he's smart enough to recognize what I'm getting at. If I take his toy and I show him that I'm locking it in his crate, he knows effectively he can't get at it and then he needs to calm down. Well, the other day I did that, and 10 minutes later he walks into my office and drops the toy in my lap again. You stinker, take it. Turns out he knows how to open his crate now. So, yeah, just on a happier note, here's a little clip of this incredibly smart dog doing what he does best. Show me that he's going to be trouble. And what Americans also need to recognize is that we're slowly losing our sovereignty from the government in the United States. The United States might be the only country that has that foundation for us to fight it back, to claw and struggle to show the government what it should and shouldn't be doing. But there's still a fight to be had, and it's something not to be taken lightly. And of course, when I mean a fight, I mean peacefully. I mean a fight politically and through the courts. I don't mean to go into the streets and harass and intimidate and become the new stormtroopers of Canada or of the United States. That's just not what I'm talking about. So feel free to take me out of context if you'd like, but it's going to be dishonest and disingenuous. What are you doing? You almost. Keep going. Show me. You gotta actually move it, mister. Oh, you stinker! You stinker! Oh my gosh! Oh. Now we're in trouble.